Bueno, buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por venir a esta conferencia. Esta conferencia va a ser en inglés. Entonces, mientras cambiamos, welcome to this talk where we're going to assess the future of porphyry copper exploration in Sonora. And specifically, I want to introduce one of the projects from Riverside that's called Ariel. My name is Julian Manco, but the rest of the team is here, including John Mark Stoudy, who I expect to back me up if something doesn't go well. Okay. The standard. So with this presentation, what I want to deliver is a little bit of who we are as Riverside, why copper is called the new oil. We can have a discussion about copper, a little bit of the copper, of the porphyry copper deposits overview, a little bit of Sonora, that's our jurisdiction, and gradually moving towards the Ariel project, and hopefully we have some time for Q&A session that we can have an interaction for some questions and resolving some doubts. So quickly, we're Riverside Resources. We're a project generator company, publicly traded. We're based in Canada, where we have a big portfolio, mostly in Ontario, also in BC. But in Mexico, we gained a position mostly in Sonora with at least 4 projects, and this is where we have Ariel, the projects that I want to talk about. We have money in the treasury, no warrants, no debt, so I invite you to take a look of the company's financial. But one of the most important assets from Riverside is knowledge. Knowledge is data collected from past experiences for at least 7 exploration alliances with major companies in the past, in the last 15 years, and around 8 junior companies. All these alliances has allowed, like you can see here, the latest alliance with BHP, which focus on exploring for porphyry copper deposits in Sonora. So all this information has been gathered. It's quality of information that any company can visualize on a strategy for the new discovery. So this is a new line of business and open to business if you want to find out more. Now we can introduce a little bit about copper. So why copper? Why as an industry, as a government, even as an individual investor, we have to have copper on the radar, having to get exposure to the copper market. And it's basically, to answer that question is, we can use just demand and supply chart. Specifically, I want to look at the demand forecast that is set to meet the Paris Agreement to the global net zero emissions by 2050. So depending on the forecast, but usually around 2026 is when we expect that gap start increasing gradually between all the supply that we have from the copper and the demand. And by 2050, that demand is going to increase almost 5 times to meet all the electric grid, right? But what's more important is all the EVs and transportation. That's more than 11 times the copper we currently produce. It has to be produced to meet all the expectations. Again, to meet all the goals with the Paris Agreement. And what's all of this? This is translation for opportunity. Opportunity for a country as Mexico that is a large copper producer, and it has to take all the steps right now for being in the big scheme in the world for copper. Now, porphyries, and my colleagues in the audience might apologize me if I'm going to simplify for those non-geologists what a porphyry copper deposit is. So we can think in the porphyry copper deposit, or the porphyry, as a deposit or as a volcano that didn't make it to the surface. Instead, all those fluids, volatiles, and juices were cooked and were stay at depth. So that concentration of metals is what we're looking for. So we as geologists, as geochemists, we love to play with all the suites of elements around it that help us to vector towards that porphyry endowment. You want to see in many presentations vectoring and vectoring. And vectoring means that using any techniques or any tools, just moving towards where we have the copper deportment or the copper precipitation. And why this is relevant or why this is important is because at least 0.5% or half of the large copper producers in the world, including Mexico, most of the copper or the copper source come from porphyries. You can see here Mexico and most of the Latin American countries. So porphyry copper deposits are the main deposits, and it's going to be the main deposits for copper supply. And if we think on porphyries and we think of Mexico, definitely we have to think on Sonora. Sonora is the top producer copper, is the copper top producer in Mexico and one of the top producers for gold. And when we talk about top, is more than the 80% of the copper that's produced by Mexico is produced only by one state, and it's Sonora. So Sonora is the natural state or the natural jurisdiction when you want to explore for giants deposits. So this is the state you want to be. So now that we have this short introduction, a little bit assessing why the importance of copper, why the importance of porphyry deposits, and why Sonora, mostly Sonora, we also have Sinaloa here in the scheme, I want to introduce you the Ariel project. So among all the districts that we have in Sonora, a lot of them really prolific, but now I'm just going to talk about Ariel. Riverside has some projects in districts like Suaki Verde, Kumobabi, and other districts. But Ariel specifically is quite interesting because it's just in the fringe of La Caridad. For you to have an idea, La Caridad mine and Cananea, they're basically in the map of the largest copper producers in America, of the mines or porphyry deposits in the Americas. You can see compared with the Chileans, comparables, but those are our main assets for Mexico. So this is how it looks in the field. This is the Ariel project. So when we stand in the Ariel project, we just see from La Caridad mine. That tells us the proximity to that big endowment from La Caridad. La Caridad is an amazing mine. I'm not going to discuss here. It's like cutting-edge technology, top-notch in recovery, electrowinning, and all these recovery from sulfides, from oxides, from intermediate or mixed ores. And what we think of is the Ariel in La Caridad, and that's what I want to address in this presentation. I want to show you some of the features of Ariel that we think resembles with some of the features in La Caridad. I just put these two lines here, and following the name of the presentation about assessing the future of the exploration in Sonora, we have to think on the exploration undercover. So for those who are familiar with Sonoran geology, we know we have a basin and range like really well developed. And all those low-hanging fruits like Caridad or like Ariel that I'm going to show briefly are already explored. And then where we're going to have a space for tonnage, for volume, for the new discoveries is going to be undercover and mostly in the basins in this kind of situation. So for the Ariel project, is more than 1,600 hectares as a project. It gets a little bit offset here, but I want you to focus is this project never been drilled in the past, even though it's ready to drill, all permitted, and is available for a joint venture or for selling, for purchase, okay? And the strategic location of the project is, again, given for all the large mining infrastructure of the area. So the access, not only the roads, but even the dam and in the vicinity. But the most important thing is the ESG, or the social license that we have in an area with most of the communities has been involved with mining in the past. So if you want to think in a jurisdiction, this is the right jurisdiction in terms of these aspects that are really relevant for mining. Now let's go to Ariel project. Some of the most stunning features of Ariel is the alteration footprint. An alteration footprint that stands more than 7 kilometers and goes beyond or goes underneath post-mineral cover. And again, that's why we have those factors. Exposure and then moving towards